You call it wasting time on your phone, but neuroscience sometimes calls it self-regulation, and here's why your endless scrolling might actually be protecting a very sensitive brain. Because when you lock yourself away and disappear into your screen for hours, it's not always avoidance, and it's not always laziness. Sometimes it's the only way your overwhelmed nervous system knows how to finally come back down to baseline after absorbing far more than it was ever built to hold. If you find yourself needing long stretches of alone time with your phone after social interaction or sensory overload, psychology suggests you might not be antisocial at all, but rather hypersensitive to stimulation in ways that require intentional recovery periods. Research shows that highly sensitive people process stimuli more deeply than others, which means a regular day at work or a casual dinner with friends can feel like running a mental marathon. And when your brain finally gets home, it doesn't want conversation or productivity. It wants the low-demand, predictable stimulation that scrolling provides because your phone asks nothing of you, while still keeping your mind just occupied enough to stop replaying every awkward moment and every emotional undercurrent you absorbed throughout the entire day. Psychology calls this sensory gating, and when yours is more open than average, you absorb everything: the noise, the lights, the energy, and the unspoken emotions of people around you. And by evening, your entire system is completely depleted. So you reach for the one thing that lets you zone out without judgment, without expectation, and without anyone needing anything from you. And that is not laziness, that is your nervous system entering survival mode because it has been running on empty for hours. Your brain is also doing something remarkably clever with dopamine when you scroll, because unlike real-world interactions that come with unpredictability and emotional labor, your phone delivers small, consistent hits of novelty that feel manageable and safe. And this is your nervous system gently regulating itself back into what psychologists call the window of tolerance, where it no longer feels so stretched and raw and overstimulated from processing everyone else's energy all day long. Research also shows that people who isolate after social situations aren't necessarily avoiding connection, but rather recharging for future connection, because your social battery works differently, and what looks like withdrawal to others is often just the price you pay for caring too deeply, listening too intently, and feeling everything more intensely than the people around you seem to. And society may call this antisocial, but you are not. Running from people, you are recovering from the invisible labor of being around them. Psychology points out that hypersensitive individuals often develop quiet coping mechanisms that go completely unnoticed, and scrolling alone becomes a form of self-soothing that doesn't burden anyone else, doesn't require explanation, and gives you a small sense of control in a world that constantly feels like too much. And if you have ever felt guilty for needing this time, understand that your brain is not broken. It is simply wired to need more recovery than anyone ever gave it credit for. So if you find yourself scrolling alone for hours after being around people, remember that your nervous system is doing exactly what it was designed to do, and the fact that you need this solitude is not a flaw. It is evidence of how deeply you experience the world and how much invisible energy you spend just existing in spaces that were never designed for sensitive minds. If this finally gave words to something you've struggled to explain, consider subscribing, because understanding your psychology isn't about finding what's wrong with you. It's about discovering how beautifully different your brain actually is.